All right. Welcome to the show, Dave. Thanks for joining us. So Android 14 started rolling out to users this month. But before we start, at I.O., you gave a great demo of some of the generative AI wallpaper functionalities that's now available. So we wanted to know, what is your current wallpaper?
Well, I'm right on message because I actually have a generative wallpaper. The one I currently have is, I can't remember the exact prompt, but it was something about a surreal bike, and you probably can't see it on the camera too easily, but it's generated this like really funky bike with gravel handlebars. If you have a road bike and you have gravel and it's a gravel bike, they're angled out, and somehow the AI has decided to create me this like fixed gear gravel bike that's kind of awesome, and it makes me feel very cool. So I have it on here. But actually, the work that went in from Google I/O in the summer to now, from a machine learning point of view, it's just been pretty amazing. Like the quality of the new diffusion models that we're using to power this are just really have got awesome, and the aesthetic is beautiful. And so I've just been having a lot of fun creating different wallpapers. So, but yes, I'm right on message. I use what I talk about.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And what about your clocks? Have you been playing with the new clocks as well?
Yeah,
or are you keeping that simple?
I love the clocks. I was obsessed with clocks as a kid. My mom told me that I used to like sleep with mechanical clocks, and I eventually got a collection of like many of them. And so I'm kind of obsessed with clocks. And so I have the analog one. I can't remember what it's called. It's like the Ripple one. And then I have it positioned on the bike as it looks like kind of like a retro light fitting on the front of the handlebars. So it looks really cool. And yeah, I'm kind of grooving that right now. But I change my wallpaper about every 2 weeks or so. It's kind of like buying a new T-shirt or something. I don't know. It's just because it's such an expressive thing that you do on your phone. It's like it's the face of your phone, and so to me, it's almost like a designer T-shirt or something. So yeah, I have fun with it.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's better than like the one picture that I've been having with my dog for like many years, and now I can finally branch out, and try something different.
You could make cinematic dog. You could use a cinematic wallpaper.
I know. Well, I've tried. So obviously, Gen AI has definitely been one of a big area of investment for us in Android, and I kind of wanted to know from your perspective, what are some of the other big areas of investment that we've seen in Android 14?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the Gen AI falls into the category I would call expression. So there was like a set of things in there, so the generative AI wallpaper is one, but things like custom clocks, which is what a lot of our users were asking for. And I'm using some of the new ones that are in the beta right now. There's, customized shortcuts, even things like expressing yourself through images with Ultra HDR is another interesting one. So that's expression. Another area that's I think really important in Android 14 is performance. And I don't know, we may not have talked enough about this, but we've done a ton of work to reduce CPU activity of background apps. And the result is that there's 30% less cold starts now on Android 14. Cold starts are when you have to like literally read the code pages off the flash and read them into memory before you execute them right. And so a 30% reduction is pretty dramatic, and you feel that as a user. So that's in performance. We've also reduced code size by about 9% through a bunch of optimizations, which I'm happy to chat about, which I think is cool. So I think there's just a whole collection of stuff in performance in 14 that have, it's kind of exceeded my expectations. I was excited about what we were doing, but like I think the team really did a great job on it. Let's see, we have a bunch of accessibility features, so sort of low vision and hard of hearing. So we've got a much better magnifier now. It's got more customized options. It's more powerful. We have flash notifications. You can configure your camera flash or your screen itself to flash if you get a notification. So I think these are features that, if you are low vision or hard of hearing, they make a massive difference to your everyday life. And so it's just really important to us that we deliver features for everybody. And then I would say the last category, and this one might seem a bit surprising, is the large screen work. And it probably seems surprising because technically it isn't part of Android 14, but it actually was. And then what we did was we wanted to get these large screen features out earlier in the year. So we actually did like updates to Android 13. And I'm talking about things like the new taskbar, for example, and it's, it hides away and it animates in. Talking about like the 50 Google apps that we optimize for large screens, the sort of right sizing of all the system UI, the compatibility modes that we created. And so a lot of that work I think of as Android 14 because that's how we originally planned it. And then we sort of exceeded our expectations. There's a lot of exceedance happening here, by the way. But we exceeded our expectations again by actually launching it earlier in the year, just because honestly, I feel like we've been a little bit behind on large screens. And so I wanted to accelerate that. But number two is also there's a huge opportunity with foldable devices. And we wanted a lot of the work that we do for large screens for tablets applies to foldable. So we wanted to get that out earlier.
No, that's excellent. I mean, so if I play that back to you, I'm hearing expression and customization. I'm hearing performance. I'm hearing areas around large screens, like what you were just talking about. I feel like one other thing as well is around like health connect data, bringing that in Android 14 and really making users' health data in one unified place. I was pretty excited about, and something with accessibility. And kind of like personalization, that like wonderful intersection of really just putting the user first, I feel is, for me anyway, as someone who's been working on Android 14 as well, is like thinking about how we can deliver like really wonderful experiences for users and allowing developers those easy APIs to kind of do it.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. And I think, Health Connect now is built into the platform, which I think is really cool. But, I get excited about features that are also not just one-offs, but they're sort of like long-term foundational things that you set up. So like performance is something that, adds value going forward. I think expression is just such an important part of, really Android. Android's always been about customizability and being able to express yourself. And so it's just a really good sort of theme for us to invest in. And so I like a lot of what's in Android 14 are things that we will continue to invest in.
If I can be so cheeky to ask you, what is your favorite feature in Android 14?
Favorite feature? Look, I think there's two. I think it's performance and Ultra HDR. And I think, I touched on performance a little bit, but really what we did was, we wanted to increase the number of cached processes. So these are processes that are in RAM so that it would have more warm starts. But to do that, the danger is if you have too many cached processes and if they're not really quiesced, if they're not really asleep, they start using more CPU activity and then they start consuming battery. And so the team has actually managed to reduce background activity by 50%, so measured off the CPU. And we did this through a bunch of projects internally to actually sort of properly freeze the processes, but also reducing broadcasts. So collapsing repeating broadcasts and actually queuing them up for after an app comes out of the cache state. The result is this sort of 30% increase in cold start. And so I think for me that's like one of my favorite. Also related to this, I touched on this earlier, was code size. We've reduced code size by 9% by like collapsing return statements and doing various optimizations in the compiler. But if you think about a device that has optimized code somewhere between 500 megs and a gigabyte of optimized code, these are apps you've installed and have been optimized. This savings is up to 50. It's like 50 megabytes to 100 megabytes of free data that we've just freed up. And so I think it's really important. So performance is one, and then the other one I think is Ultra HDR. This has been something. It's always a challenge to introduce a new media format, because if you introduce a new media format and you try to share a media like an image or video with an app that doesn't support it, you get into trouble. And so what we've done is we've come up with a way of extending JPEGs. And so the JPEG has normal, you would call it SDR, like standard definition, I suppose. Or standard dynamic range. And that works just fine for screens that are up to about 400 nits or so. But for screens that are 400 to maybe up to 800 now, you can get even higher. What we've done is we've added a gain map inside the JPEG. And this gain map is ignored if the app doesn't understand it. But if it does, it will actually apply this. It's a logarithmic gain map, and we'll use it to extend the dynamic range. This is the brightness. Like you're probably familiar with those chromaticity diagrams where you have the X and Y and you have the triangle. That's about your color space. And you try to expand that for color space. The Z axis isn't usually drawn on that. That's the one I'm talking about. That's the brightness one. But the result is if you have, and you can see it on a Pixel, and it's coming to a lot of Android devices over the next year. But if you see the results, it's dramatic. And if you're a developer and you're working with images and you have an app that's processing these things, like your sky looks so dynamic and alive, and the image still looks really tasteful. And so we're just excited about it I'm excited about it as a feature that is really good for users and also really good for developers working with media, because it can really allow the quality to shine through.
So you kind of gave me two,
2.
but I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Yeah, and actually that's a really good thing for us to know. We're actually going to do a live demo of how actually developers can enable Ultra HDR. So
Awesome.
thank you for making that a bit easier for later on in the show. So you've been speaking a lot about the team has been working pretty hard on improving the Android performance and experience in 14. And so, the team has been focusing a lot on quality. So can you tell us why does this matter? What does this mean to users? What does it mean for Android developers?
Yeah. I mean, I think quality is just, it must be, I sometimes call it the number one feature, right? Like if you think about how much we depend on our devices and how much we use them a day, it's just really important that the device runs really, really well, really, really reliably, the highest performance, highest fidelity. And so, when I think about quality, I think there's multiple dimensions to think along. I start with platform and I think about, we do an OS release. How do we make sure the quality of that's really good? One of the things that we did internally is we made a pledge to ourselves that we would ensure that every release was higher quality than the previous release by a set of expanding metrics that we measure in the lab and in the field. And we've been holding ourselves to that, and it's difficult, I can tell you, because you're only as good as the weakest metric, and so you've got to chase everything down. But it's really causing us to force the bar higher and higher. And even internally, we're looking at actually changing some of our developer practices in 2024, where rather than sort of go off for a year and work on a release for a very long time, can we break that up into chunks internally so that we sort of keep the branch green as we go internally. And so that's something that we think will also help on that metric. So rather than sort of have the metrics go up and down and having to chase them back up, it'll be a smaller ripple, and it'll make it easier for us to actually have a sort of a slope, an increasing slope, which I think of as an electrical engineer, smaller AC, higher DC rising component. But so that's one aspect. But I think quality also applies to developers, right? An operating system is nothing without the applications. And so, we think about, well, how do we really help developers' lives be better? How do we enable developers to spend more time on expressing themselves with their creativity than sort of fighting tools or challenges with the platform? And so there's quite a few different examples I could give. One example I often think about is Jetpack Compose, and in particular Kotlin, the language. I think as having been a developer myself and still I still dabble writing code. It's really important that the tools are actually fun and nice to use. That you're not fighting them all the time, but actually they're enabling you. And I feel like we've done that with Kotlin and Compose. Of course, there's lots of room to improve. But I've written an app fairly recently. And in Kotlin and Compose, and it was just so nice to write. I could just focus on the actual problem I was trying to solve for the user and not fight the technology. But also, it feels good when you write elegant code and it's compact and tight. And so I think that's one example. Another example I think I would give is CredMan. So this is our new credential manager set of tools. We have a Jetpack library. It's also built into Android 14. And this just makes it really easy to do authentication, whether it's a password or now new passkeys, for example. And we're really sort of trying to set developers up to make it easy. Do this thing once that will then sort of future-proof you. And passkeys are this really great example of a technology that I think is simpler for developers to work with and better for users. And so the idea with a passkey is you're actually using your as a user, you're using your bio authentication, whether it's your face unlock or your fingerprint, to actually just log into your app or your website. And of course, underneath the hood, we create a private and public key. The public key is sent to the website or the app. Private key is managed by the device. And by doing this, it's unique per service, and you can't then phish these things or credential stuff for them. So they're much more secure. It's more elegant. I just use my fingerprint to log in, and it's just a much better system. But for developers, we think about quality. Well, how do we just roll all this stuff up together into one sort of class that makes it easy to work with that? And that's Credential Manager. What else? Compose is also we're trying to extend where we use it. One place we're we're working with is with Widgets using the new Glance API. And so this allows us to use Compose on top of remote views and make it much easier and more elegant to write widgets. And I think widgets are really important for, I talked about large screen earlier. With a large screen, you've got more room to show things. And so widgets are really important on the home screen. And so that's an example of some of the things where we think about quality. It's platform and OS, but also enabling developers to deliver better experiences.
No, I love that. Thanks. And I think also with Credman in particular, we're able to kind of say, hey, there's this new thing, passkeys, but hey, developers, actually, we're going to create this one library and like platform API, which you can handle all of your sign-in methods. So you now, before it was like, oh, what am I doing? Is it federated sign-in?
Right.
Is it password and like username? Oh, and now I've got this other thing. And before that could have been like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah.
And now, thinking about actually trying to think about that developer experience as well. That's something I think, pretty proud of the fact that we've been able to consolidate it into one library. And we'll see if developers will start liking it and giving us feedback on it. I
Exactly. And feedback's really important for us. I mean, I think, when we do the betas for dessert releases, like it's just so important to get that feedback channel in and so we can adapt. And it's the same thing on the developer side as we create these Jetpack libraries or new APIs, getting that feedback so we can adjust and improve. It's really important. And that's kind of like the ethos that we like to have with Android is like we want to work really closely with developers. We want to work very openly, get that feedback. We're not perfect. We try hard, but sometimes, you all out there know better than we do. So please tell us. And we just want to create a really great platform for you and for the users. And hopefully we get it right more than wrong. And if not, we'll fix it.
Exactly. So I guess you talked about the Android developers. So what type of experiences are you excited for Android developers to start like building in the next year? Is there anything that you would like them to be doing, or different technologies you want them to be playing with, or you think that Android can help them build?
Yeah, there's so many, and then I have to think about things that we haven't talked about yet externally. But I think I mentioned earlier about large screens. We invested a ton in that. Really, in the last 2 years, started with 12L, 13, and then the updates at 13 this year, and we're seeing some really great products out there. Whether it's Pixel Tablet, Pixel Fold, or the Samsung S9, Samsung Fold, etc. I think there's a really great opportunity for Android to differentiate with foldable devices. I use them all. I just can't give up the foldable device. I just love this. I can just sit down, unfold, and like read a full size paper, full size. It's just like awesome. And so I think what you'll see from us is it wasn't just like, hey, we got to surge and catch up, and now we just sort of go back to business as usual. We have a whole roadmap for large screen, and it's just going to get better and better, and more productivity focused, et cetera. And so I'm pretty excited about that. But I would encourage developers to definitely look at that. And I think the foldable devices themselves are just going to get even better and better. I've seen prototypes of new hardware from all sorts of manufacturers around the world, and it's really nice what's coming. So I think that's one. I think the other one, no conversation in tech can complete without mentioning AI, right? And generative AI, and so I think going into 2024, I think there's some really great opportunities for developers. We'll have more to announce, but we are definitely looking at a lot of tools and technologies that will enable developers to build really rich applications, whether that's using cloud models or on-device models. Some more to talk about there. But I think that's probably one big area that I think there's opportunity to innovate around.
So you were talking a little bit about like the developer experience and trying to make that delightful for Android developers. What sort of things are you excited to see coming out in Android Studio? Have you been seeing since Google I/O?
I think the thing I'm most excited about, partially because I asked the team to go invest in it, is StudioBot. I think the potential for AI to increase productivity of developers is just enormous. And so, that old saying that everybody in tech says we're just getting started, but it's true. I think we're improving code completion. I mean, if you just sort of like fast forward to the future, the StudioBot's it can help you write tests. It's going to be able to like help you understand compiler errors, actually fix it for you. And it's already starting to do some of this already. But I think it can become really powerful and really just be, your wing person that's helping you be more productive. And we have new models that we're working on, so that it's just going to get better and better. And so when you look at StudioBot and try it today, and a lot of people are, and they're coming back to keep using it, it's don't forget that these are early models, and just imagine how this is going to go in the next 2 years. My hope for this, and I think our vision is that I think we can make Android developers the most productive developers in the world, and I think StudioBot's going to play a big role in that.
That's a great mission statement.
Yep. You heard it here first. The problem with this thing is, though, because then somebody a year later will be like, Dave, you said this would happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you do it? But usually we're pretty good to our words. So yeah, no, watch the space. It's going to be exciting. And again, feedback. Love to hear the feedback on StudioBot. Please let us know what you think would be helpful.
Well, Dave, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Android Show.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun talking.